South Africa has spent nearly 6,000 hours in the dark this year. It's resulted in staggering costs for municipalities. At least 1.6 billion rand has been spent on fixing infrastructure that's either been damaged or stolen during load shedding. The situation also worsened by a fall in revenue. We're joined now by the South African Local Government Association's Sustainable Energy Specialist, Silas Mulaudzi. Silas, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. The two almost seem to have an impact on each other, right? Because once you have a deterioration of infrastructure, municipalities not being able to hold up their end of the deal in the provision of service, the first thing it affects is revenue.
Good evening, Kathy, and good evening to the viewers at home. Yes, absolutely. We have witnessed devastating effects of load shedding on the municipal infrastructure as well as the budget, mainly in a form of the vandalism and the theft of the infrastructure that we've seen both in the electricity as well as in the wastewater treatment works during the hours of load shedding, Kathy. So the OPEX, operational expenditure in terms of replacement, in terms of repairing of this infrastructure is quite massive. It's highly unsustainable, highly unaffordable as we speak now. Casey, thank you.
The reality is that municipalities are dealing with what most of the time tends to be quite a fixed revenue stream, and it can be quite difficult for them to come up with new money to have as addition to their budget. You, as Salga, the challenges that you have identified in this regard with certain municipalities?
It is actually on that basis where, as Salga, we are saying that municipalities need to consider a new business model, because the old or traditional way of purchasing bulk electricity from Eskom and sell to customers is very ancient. It's a dinosaur. The energy landscape has transformed, Kathy. So we're saying that there are business models, new business models that municipalities will have to adopt. And we've seen many of them as we speak, such as City of Cape Town and other metros. They are, as we speak now, allowing what we call wheeling. They are allowing what we call embedded generation connected to their network so that they can generate additional revenue over and above the traditional way of selling electricity and make profit, because it is highly unsustainable under the current energy transformation.
Silas, we can't talk about new models of revenue generation, especially when it comes to issues such as bulk supply of electricity. You move away the focus from Eskom, then that means that you're bringing into the conversation independent power producers. But that, of course, also requires its own capital injection. So what are you saying municipalities must do? That they must partner up with private entities that are willing to put in money into such agreements?
And you would have heard from City of Tshwane, where they're going to basically lease out their two old coal-fired power stations. Basically, what some of the municipalities are doing is actually enter into the PPP, which is where they will bring in an investor with the capital injection in order to revive some of the power stations, in order to build new clean energy power stations, so that the municipalities can then purchase from such IPPs at a less rate than what they will be purchasing from Eskom as we speak. So PPP is another model that the municipalities are basically pursuing as we speak. We've got many examples that are in that particular pipeline as we speak now.
Silas, the reality is that much of what you're talking about from an implementation point of view needs municipalities that are forward-looking, that have got really vision beyond the here and now, which unfortunately is not the state of the majority of our municipalities that are struggling with basic administration issues. Where does that leave then South Africans, and I would argue the majority of South Africans who are in municipalities that are performing at a very average level, some of them even to the point of being dysfunctional?
And that is actually where almost all municipalities have basically realized that they've got what we call the greatest asset in their possession, which is basically network and hence many of them are basically planning to make use of such network in many ways, network infrastructure in many ways, including what I spoke about as wheeling, and of course venturing into the issues around embedded generation. But over and above that, there are basically issues around just energy transition, where we've got a lot of municipalities with project pipelines that are basically waiting for the support from the just energy transition, which they're basically ready to maintain, to fix, and to upgrade their network so that they can allow injection of new power from other sources of electricity, as opposed to one stream of ESCOM, which will be part of contributing to run a sustainable electricity business in the local government. But obviously, we have got issues around capacity and expertise, which is what we are in partnership with different donor funders, capacitating municipalities as we speak, so that they can be able to run a sustainable electricity business in their municipalities.
Silas, municipalities by and large rely a great deal on the grants that they receive from National Treasury, especially when it comes to servicing infrastructure and even building new infrastructure. We know that for this financial year, going into 2024, government is sitting with a budget deficit, not having enough money really to meet the level and the necessary allocation of services that needs to be provided. As Salga, what are the conversations that you're having with municipalities? How do you think you're actually going to be affected by this?
Well, the conversations are around how can municipalities maximize some of the grants that they will still continue to receive. And you would know, Kathy, that there are a lot of grants that remains unutilized as we speak. Then part of our discussion is to say, how do we maximize or repurpose some of the unutilized grants as we speak, so that we can be able to support, they can be able to support municipalities in maintaining and upgrading the infrastructure, both water as well as electricity. As you said, many of them are basically, they've got huge backlog around maintenance, and of course they need to be upgraded so as to basically cope with the ever increased demand of water as well as electricity. But my point is that there is a lot of unused grants that we are advocating for repurposing. There are, of course, various stakeholders and donor funders that we are basically negotiating and, of course, discussing around how can they assist municipalities. And obviously, Section 154 of the Constitution, cooperative governance, where we've seen a lot of provinces such as KZN, Western Cape, they've got structures in place that is actually helping municipalities under the current circumstance of load shedding, where municipalities are actually bleeding as we speak due to vandalism, theft, and excessive switching, where the infrastructure is being damaged on a daily basis.
Silas, how long is it going to take, do you believe, to bring in this reform into municipalities?
We have got a project which we are working on, the EDI electricity distribution industry reform. We are finalizing the proposals that we are going to present to the national government. That is the reform looking at different options in which municipalities can actually be restructured so that they can be sustainable, they can be able to run a profitable electricity as well as water business. So in terms of timelines, Kathy, it's not that easy at this point in time. Nevertheless, as Salga, we will continue to play the advocacy as well as the lobby role to the other spheres of government.
Silas Mulaudzi, a specialist under sustainable energy with Salga.